This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. We've got numbers to back up the affordability crisis we've been talking about for years that's now hitting the U.S. car market. Bloomberg reports that 55% of all new car sales now go to households with incomes over $265,000 a year. People who bought or leased new cars before the pandemic are now coming back to the market to find the exact same car is now $300 more a month. And so 73% of new car buyers are simply holding on to the cars that they've got. Even used cars are too expensive for many households, which is why the average age of cars is now 12.6 years and growing. And not only are new cars much more expensive, higher interest rates make them more expensive to buy or lease, and soaring interest costs are making them more expensive to insure. So we think that we've hit peak auto. New car sales remain well below their pre-COVID levels and show no sign of coming back anytime soon, if ever. Some new car dealers aren't very enthusiastic about selling electric cars, but maybe this will help change their minds. Dealers make more money repairing EVs than they do cars with internal combustion engines. Asbury Automotive, a large dealer group, says it averages $517 to repair an ICE vehicle, but $629 for a PHEV and $865 for a BEV. Even though EVs have less moving parts, they tend to have more complex technology, which means they take longer to repair, and that's where the higher costs are coming from. According to Ward's Auto, Roger Penske says the average BEV repair bill is around $1,300 compared to $700 for an ICE vehicle. That technology also makes it harder for independent repair shops to compete, which drives even more EV business to dealerships. The Volkswagen brand is having a strong year so far in the U.S. Sales are up 19% to more than 275,000 vehicles. But despite that, reports from Germany say that VW is planning to replace the CEO of VW Group of America, Pablo DC. Volkswagen declined to comment on the report and said DC remains in his role. DC became head of VW of America in September of 2022. He took the spot from Scott Keogh, who is now CEO of Scout Motors.
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Teijin Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.
The BYD Shark pickup is entering another big truck market, Australia. Right-hand drive versions are now launching in parts of the country with a starting price just under 58,000 Australian dollars, which is about 38,000 US dollars. It features a plug-in hybrid setup that combines a 1.5-liter engine with electric motors, which produces 430 horsepower and provides 800 kilometers or nearly 500 miles of range, as well as 2,500 kilograms or 5,500 pounds of towing capacity. We'll be interested to see if the Shark has enough to entice buyers away from the truck market leaders in Australia, like the Ford Ranger and Toyota Hilux. Toyota doesn't offer a PHEV truck, and the plug-in version of the Ranger doesn't launch until the spring of next year, so BYD has a jump on both. Speaking of trucks, Nissan is showing the extremes you can take the Frontier to at SEMA. One is an extreme street truck with low-riding suspension, extra wide wheels and tires, and a supercharged V6 that makes about 400 horsepower. The other is an extreme off-road tailgating truck with a lift kit, beadlock wheels, and an upgraded lighting system, highlighting the off-road stuff. But it's also fitted with two 43-inch TVs, powered coolers, a grill, and even a kitchen sink. And in one last bit of truck news, Chevy has a new name for the diagonal driving maneuver that the Silverado EV can make using its four-wheel steering system. It's called Sidewinder, like a snake, and works up to 20 miles an hour. Chevy says it will be standard on all 2025 RST models and offered as an OTA update on 2024 versions. The Hummer EV has the exact same capability, but GMC calls it crab walk. Volvo's sales were up in October thanks to its electrified models. The automaker sold more than 61,000 vehicles globally last month, up 3% from a year ago. Its BEV and PHEV sales accounted for nearly half of that figure at nearly 30,000 units, a 40% gain from last year. Through October, Volvo has sold more than 622,000 vehicles worldwide, a 9% increase, and it sold more than 286,000 electrified models, which is up 34%. Automakers in Canada are concerned about meeting EV sales targets in the coming years because several provinces are ending purchase incentives. The federal government currently provides 5,000 Canadian dollars, or about 3,600 US dollars, for purchasing an EV, and provinces like Quebec and British Columbia provide EV incentives of 7,000 and 4,000 Canadian respectively. But Quebec is phasing out the subsidy in 2027. Earlier this summer, British Columbia limited who qualifies for its incentive, and Ontario ended EV incentives back in 2018. However, Canada is planning to phase out sales of new ICE vehicles in 2035, and the percentage of EV sales are supposed to ramp up between now and then. EVs must account for 20% of sales in 2026 and 60% of sales by 2030. But so far this year, they're at about 10% market share, and with EV incentives being rolled back, automakers are worried about being penalized for missing targets. And over in Europe, there's a battle over stricter CO2 standards that go into effect next year. Italy has already called for the regulations to be delayed or relaxed, and now it's being joined by the Czech Republic. The country's transport minister says automakers will have a hard time meeting the targets because of weaker EV demand in Europe, so it wants to help automakers from being fined for missing them. The ACEA, a group that represents most automakers in Europe, says companies face fines up to $15 billion next year for not meeting CO2 standards. And that brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks for making Autoline a part of your day.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering boost your game. And by Teijin Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility.
Developing today's vehicles, issues can happen in an instant. What good is knowing your problems without the data to solve them? Meet Wireless Neovi Cloud, your secure off-the-shelf solution, empowering real-time collaboration for quick resolution. With Wireless Neovi Cloud, your team can prevent issues before they can escalate. Driver communication data and remote diagnostics to analyze and resolve your problems using OTA, allowing your executives oversight throughout the process. Wireless Neovi Cloud, your vehicle update solution in production and on the road. Intrepid Control Systems, driven by your data.
Performance that shines, even in the rain. That's what really matters. Bridgestone Potenza tires, improved grip in wet conditions.